not good with the thundery ones.
Something tells me everything is not going to be fine.
This video will be a behind the scenes of my time on MLP Reanimated. This was a multi-animators project held by the wonderful Gator Goat Johnny, which endeavoured to reanimate the entirety of Season 3, Episode 13. Magical Mystery Cure. Each animator was responsible for a couple seconds each and was allowed full creative freedom on how they wished to present their segment. This was put together by approximately 100 animators, and due to the size of both the crew and the following, probably makes it the biggest project I have been a part of after Friendship is Tragic. And for those who don't know me, hi, I'm Mazzy. I'm an artist, writer, VA and filmmaker from the UK. In MLP Reanimated, my task was part 7, which is the revelation where the cutie mark switch up is revealed and something tells Twilight that everything is not going to be fine. I chose this part because as an illustrator, I specialise more in intimate scenes that are driven by conversation as opposed to heavy action. As previously mentioned, we were given complete creative freedom with how we were to present our segments. Some animators took this and ran, coming up with some really brilliant ideas, but I decided to stick to the original staging and composition of the scene from the episode for mine, just so I had something consistent to reference. I would have done ponies, just in my style, but I noticed a lot of animators were redesigning the characters during production, some of which consisted of human redesigns, so I felt inspired to go down that route too. My designs of Twilight and Rarity are actually from a pre-existing set of human redesigns I made in the summer of 24. This is Rarity, she is from Kenya, and this is Twilight, who is from Mexico. The designs are relatively similar to how they were when they were first drawn, however I did change Twilight's hair back to its regular galactic colours as opposed to the dark brown I had, just since I was worried that she wouldn't be recognisable enough to casual viewers, especially since Rarity has her purple hair anyway. Maybe Twilight dyed it blue after coming to Ponyville after some influence from Rainbow Dash, but was never too focused on maintaining it. In the final release, I'm noticing a lot of the comments praising the segments that give Twilight glasses. Unfortunately, as much as I love the glasses look on Twilight, I prefer to keep the glasses limited to Side-Twite only, just as a design device to distinguish them. Princess Twilight wears contact lenses in my book. Obviously, changing fantastical creatures into humans involved some problem solving, especially with the segment that I had chosen, which contained 2 key components that needed to be translated effectively. The cutie marks were easy, I decided to simply put them on their shoulders. Twilight has hers too, it's just covered by her sleeves. The comments really praised this idea in the final upload. Alternatively, with magic, I was going to go down the Merlin route of having the magic come from the eyes, but I was just thinking of how that would cause potential visibility issues, especially with the blue magic on the blue eyes, so I instead opted for the second most conventional approach, which is having the hands or fingertips as a source. This allowed me to give Rarity a slightly more dynamic pose and incorporate more action into the image, as it gives her something to do using her arms. I decided not to use a wand, as I wanted to communicate the magic was coming from her due to her genetics, as opposed to an external artifact, and only had about 7 seconds to show that. Something that came up after the project's release was asking why me and the other 4 human animators didn't just use Equestria Girls designs. As previously mentioned, we were given full creative freedom, so when presented with the option and having our own designs at hand, we may as well use them. It would have been interesting if someone used the Equestria Girls designs in their segment though, I'll give you that. You may laugh now, but it took me ages to draw Rarity's arm in a natural position whilst also ensuring her shawl didn't cover her cutie mark. In retrospect, I could have used the shawl to reveal the incorrect cutie mark to Twilight and the audience in the animation, but that never ended up happening since I was trying to follow the action beats of the original. You'll notice that I kept the background very similar to the source. Looking back, I could have used something more realistic like London Bridge or the Golden Gate Bridge, but since the segment featured cutie marks and the use of magic, I thought I'd keep the colourful and swirly influence from the backgrounds in the original shot to match this magical fantasy world. You will see in the speed paint that I did struggle with the angles of the bridge. I am used to drawing straight bridges, like Tower Bridge, not curvy bridges. When I introduced myself at the start of the video, you'll notice that I didn't identify myself as an animator. I am an illustrator and editor, which is most definitely very evident due to my technique being characterised heavily by moving pictures. I can animate, I just don't do it very frequently since I am more interested in the illustrative aspect as opposed to the animation itself. The two types of animation I am capable of is tweening, which is essentially keyframing, and frame by frame, which is what stop motion falls under. In this segment, I use both. Elements such as the lip sync and Twilight's eye highlights used frame by frame, and other items like the clouds and Twilight's hand used tweening. This is a blink and you'll miss it moment, but the water droplet that falls off of Twilight's hair was just keyframed and then faded out. For Rarity's magic, I was originally intending to animate some blue swirls, but eventually ended up with a ball of white lighting, just an overlaid shape I drew, constantly fading in and out. The rain, lightning and sparkles were royalty-free presets from my editor. The glitter was added to represent how there's magic in the air, and the unconventional control of the weather by Rarity's magic. When creating lip sync for shorter durations, I usually time it to a slowed version of the audio due to it allowing me to fade each frame into the next. Once you've sped it back up again, it gives you this really smooth motion blur effect. In regards to my chosen colour palette, I stuck with quite greyish blues and other muted tones just to fit the cloudy and stormy atmosphere of the scene. Usually in my work, I utilise very pastel tones with pink overlays, but naturally due to working with clouds and evanescing light, the gloomy tone wrote itself throughout. I did eyedrop colours from respective reference material, but they did end up desaturating naturally, either through overlays or rendering. After finishing the animation in early March, some responses I received upon the initial submission included praise for the lightning effect, and at the time I didn't have the heart to tell them that it was just a preset from my editor, but I was the one who did the layering and flashing to make it look nice. Another response praised Twilight's quote-unquote serious nails, to which I responded that I do reference my own hand a lot. If it makes sense for the character, I'm giving it to them. Rarity has them too, you just can't see them as well since she's so far away. Then in September I needed to submit it again because I had to convert it to MP4. Whoops! Throughout autumn, the work in progress of the project premiered at several convention panels. Though I wasn't at UK PonyCon in the flesh, my work was on screen in the auditorium of the Reanimated panel. Then, over a month later, a further work in progress premiered at Mainstage at Ponyville Cider Fest. And here we are in January. The final release is out and we are amazed with the response we received. Let me tell you that myself and plenty of other animators in the project are reading every single comment and are really cherishing the kind words and appreciation you have for the time and skill we put into it, the individuality of each art style and every creative touch that was implemented. It was so heartwarming to see some of the other animators who added fun cameos into their segments really treasuring those comments they received regarding them. And for me, it's been especially lovely seeing commenters discussing and timestamping my segment in particular, and being able to interact with the community about it. It was really interesting, as someone was asking as to why I made a certain decision regarding one of my designs, and being able to challenge these questions and back up my creative choices was really interesting. I also had mutuals on Instagram messaging me with screen caps of my segment when they noticed my art style when watching, which honestly felt so rewarding. Of course, there were a great handful of what these self-proclaimed critics would deem as quote-unquote witty comments that essentially just consisted of insults towards any given art style, redesign, or creative liberty throughout the video. And honestly, anyone who's that quick to devalue human creativity never cared for it that much to begin with. In conclusion, and as pointed out by many commenters, with the rise of generative AI, true artistry and animation is more important than ever. With the vast cosmopolitan collection of real artists and diverse art styles presented within this collaboration, this project truly enforces that there is still hope, and in turn has also uplifted many emerging creatives. And from a fandom perspective, despite the show ending almost 7 years ago, this collaboration has truly shown the positive influence the show still has on many, and that there is still life and true creativity within the fandom, and has even allowed any scattered light within it to reunite once more. Reading the comments, everyone seems to have just come together, even if just for a little bit, and I find that truly beautiful. Thank you to John for hosting this project, especially due to the incredibly high impact which we never anticipated it would have. And finally, I would like to thank the artists on screen for my cameos of my pony Sona and even my cat. Once again, brava all. This was a multi-animators project. I did it again. When creating lip sync for shorter generations? What? So I felt just as a divine device. Just as a divine, I cannot say design device.